I was very curious about the new Pinocchio film. I have a weird attitude about Pinocchio because, on the one hand, I loved it as a child, I watched it a lot, but on the other, I've not seen the classic Disney animation in a very long time because it genuinely scares me. But I've seen various live action Pinocchios over the years, and I was curious to see what Disney were going to do with this. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed. Now, I cannot be sure that this will be spoiler free because I'm going to be talking about various aspects of the film. I think if you've seen the original Pinocchio, then this will probably still be spoiler free. But if for whatever reason you haven't seen the original Pinocchio animation, definitely watch that before watching this because it's really interesting to see which bits Disney kept, for example, which songs they kept in, and to see whether there may be slight changes here and there. But for the most part, it follows the narrative very similarly and definitely feels like a Disney film. But I will say it wasn't as scary, and I'll talk more about that at certain points. But this was released this year, of course, in 2022. It was released on Disney Plus Day, which is a fabulous day, directed by Robert Zemeckis. And we have a brilliant voice cast, or cast in general. Tom Hanks is Geppetto. Jiminy Cricket is voiced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Jiminy Cricket in this I really liked. I really liked the design of him. I liked the way the character was represented. Pinocchio is voiced by Benjamin Evan Ainsworth, and he's done a fantastic job with this. Pinocchio, the voice acting was just absolutely brilliant, and I got a real sense that we were watching a character that Disney has done before, but it wasn't just a copycat of the animated version. And I think they kind of balanced that very well with making him recognizable, but slightly different. The design of Pinocchio, particularly the puppet before he comes to life, I loved. Thought it was absolutely fantastic. The other standout for me that I want to mention is the character of Sabina, played by Jaquita Talley, and her singing is absolutely gorgeous. Really, truly loved the scenes that she was in and how they were presented. The music, for the most part, is wonderful. There are several recognizable songs here, but I have to say I didn't really like the Blue Fairy singing When You Wish Upon a Star. It just didn't sound very good. Not that vocally it was bad, but it just sounded quite a bit different and it didn't really work for me personally. Whereas most of the other songs that they've kept in, I thought were actually really good. And they were, again, with subtle differences to make it a little bit different and unique, but they still were recognizable and really thoroughly enjoyable. So for the most part, the songs in this I thought worked very well. The narrative itself, as I said, follows a very similar progression. I thought the pacing was very good. It got to the point quite quickly, and we met various characters at a good rate. I feel like a new character was introduced pretty evenly throughout, and the fox is always going to be one of my favorites. I always find him to be, oh, creepy, but I absolutely love him. His line about Chris Pine, it genuinely took me a second. It took me a second to get it, and it made me laugh, and I really like that line because what that line has done, and I don't want to go into too much detail about the context surrounding why he mentioned Chris Pine. But what it's done is instantly said, yes, we are recreating a classic Disney film, but here's a contemporary reference. And it's such a subtle thing. And, if a young child watching it who hasn't heard of Chris Pine, it won't mean anything, and that's fine. It doesn't feel jarring, it doesn't feel out of place. But when you're watching it with that context, it's just a gorgeous little contemporary reference that just makes it a little bit different again to the original animation. And that I really enjoyed. Another moment that I loved were the scenes at Pleasure Island. Visually, I thought they were fabulous. The set designs for those are gorgeous, and that's kind of the same across the majority of the film. Well, I say the majority of the film. I think pretty much all of the film's set designs were beautiful, and the costumes were as well. I'm not sure who did the costumes, but I will have a look just now while I'm wittering on about the rest of the film. Um, I don't think the Blue Fairy was in it as much as I remember her being in it, but I don't know if that's just my memory. As I said, I haven't seen the original animation in quite a long time because it genuinely scares me. but I feel like she was in it less. But if anybody can confirm or deny that, please feel free. And with regards to being scared by it, costumes are by Joanna Johnson, by the way. I do think the donkey scene was not as scary. Part of me is a little bit disappointed by that because I love to be scared by that scene. And it's one of those scenes that, if it's recommended to me on YouTube, I will watch that scene, even though it terrifies me. And I do think the donkey scene wasn't that scary, but I think maybe that's a good thing for the majority of the audience, mainly young children watching it, because it's live action. If it was that scary, it might have been bordering on having a higher rating. I'm not entirely sure. You can get away with more when it's animation. But I think it worked well. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't as scary as the animation version. Also the bit when he's dancing on the stage and his feet catch fire, genuinely that was terrifying. That was scary and that was very well done. So very, very effective. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not going to say it's my favourite Disney film. It's not even my favourite Disney live action. But I was really impressed with it. I worried that it was going to be just a cheesy live action copy of the animation. But they've kept most of the things about the animation that made it brilliant, gave it a live action and occasionally contemporary twist, added in a few things that are new here and there, and made it something that both fans of the original animation and people who have never seen it can really thoroughly enjoy. Also, before I forget, Figaro. Figaro is my favourite Disney cat of all time, and the live action Figaro is just amazing. Amazingly cute. He kind of looks like what my cat did when my cat was a kitten, and I absolutely adored Figaro. So I have no complaints at all. I liked it more than I thought. Brilliant acting across the board, brilliant set designs. Love the design of Pinocchio. For the most part, the music was really enjoyable. The actual narrative itself worked very well. Some nice contemporary references and little tweaks here and there to make it a bit more unique than just a copycat of the animation. If you're a fan of the original, I think you'll really enjoy Pinocchio. And if you've never seen the original, I definitely definitely recommend you check out Disney's animation of Pinocchio and then watch this. I'm really rather impressed.